Now that I've helped you take apart your Benjamin screw, you probably want some help putting it back together. Putting it back together is just as painful as taking it apart, but let's go ahead and begin. First thing you got to put in is your valve assembly. Now your valve assembly has 4 holes right here, right? 3 of these holes are threaded, 1 is not. That unthreaded hole is where all your gas comes out and sends the pellet out the barrel. So that 4th hole, the unthreaded hole, has to be pointing up. If you see, this thing is pointing, this is the bottom of the whole gun because this is where the gauge port screws in. The pressure gauge screws in. So when you put in your valve assembly, this little pin has to be pointing towards the back, and that hole needs to be facing up. Now this is up. This is the top of the gun. This is where that valve assembly, that 4th hole, has to line up to. Now my gun is pretty rusty inside, and I recommend that you would clean yours first, but I'm just going to go ahead and put it in. Now you got to push it in from this side first. Make sure when you're putting it in that the 4th hole is pointing up. Try to carefully push it in. Make sure none of your O-rings are damaged. I got a cut on mine, but it's fine. Make sure none of your O-rings are damaged. Make sure you have a bunch of lube to push it through. Now right here, there's a lip you have to get past. It's fine. Just go ahead and try to push on through. I might rip mine again, but that's okay. Alright, now I got it in past the lip. Pushing it down the tube with your barrel. And it's smooth sailing till you get all the way over here. Alright. Now it's lined up. Fix it with your screwdriver. Right. Like that. Go ahead and put in your 3 valve assembly screws. So now the next thing you need to do is to push in your gauge port. Make sure it's lined up, and then go ahead and push it on through. And look at that. Fits in perfectly. There's nothing that keeps the gauge port in place, so just leave it like that. If you want, you can go ahead and put back on your gauge. Just put the O-ring at the bottom and make sure you put on Teflon. Let me go ahead and grab some. I recommend that you use airgun Teflon and not water Teflon like I'm doing. But I guess it's all the same, right? No, it's not all the same. Use airgun, or use Teflon rated for a high pressure. This might be high pressure Teflon. I don't remember. Make sure to leave a little bit free at the tip so you can screw it in. You just need to go around once. Alright. Now go ahead and make sure it's properly screwing in. Now if yours is not properly screwing in, you're going to see it kind of crooked like this, and that is not good. That is not properly inside the gauge port. Go ahead and turn it kind of tight. That's all you need. Now it should be able to move like this. This is normal for it to move, rotate. It should also be able to move left and right just a tiny bit. That is also normal. Alright, so the next thing you need to do is put it on the gauge port. Where's my gauge port now? Just remember this little lip right here, you got to get it past that. And then go ahead and screw it in. And here is the gauge port screwed in. Next thing we're going to do is put in the hammer. This hammer goes in, I believe, like this. I believe this is the top. If not, I'll know in a second. Alright. After you put in the hammer, take this little hammer pin. You can see it. Make sure that little tiny tip is into the top of the hammer so it can move just like this. See? The next thing you need to do is take your bolt, if it's called that, and put it back into your breech. Alright. I don't know if you saw that. I'll do it one more time. Put it back into the breech. Alright. Now take your bolt handle and screw it in. Well, don't screw it in. Don't do that. Actually, the first thing you need to do is put this breech back onto your barrel. Make sure it goes on just like this. Perfect. The barrel sleeve should be able to go into the breech just a little bit. There is an overlap. And now the next thing you can do is tighten the breech down onto the barrel. You will know it's straight by looking at these two, and by these two screw marks. Also just laying it flat and messing with it. Tighten down the sleeve. Sleeve uses 1/16. Alright, cool. Alright, cool. So now you got your breech, you got your bolt inside, and you got your barrel on with the sleeve. Now the next part is going to be, you're going to look at the top of the gun. Make sure this port is lined up straight. Mine is not really, but it's fine. You're going to put on an O-ring. It's kind of like a squarish O-ring. It's not really rounded. This goes on first. Then after that O-ring goes on this fill port, or this port sleeve. It kind of connects the top half and the lower half. Airwise, this is where all your air goes through. This little tiny hole. This hole, this sleeve, it has a narrow hole and a wider hole. I want you to put the wider hole down first. I think. No, put the narrow hole down first. That goes into the middle of the O-ring. Now you have to make sure that your bolt is not all the way back, so that your hammer pin can go into a tiny little hole right there. And now push on make sure this is into both your O-ring and your air sleeve. Make sure it's lined up, and now squish it together. And that is how that works. Now, as you're holding it together, take your 0.05 Allen wrench, take your special screw underneath the bolt, and go ahead and screw it in. Alright, so now take your bolt handle and screw it in. This uses a 7/16 wrench. Mine is kind of bent from years of use, but still works fine. Cool. Now, next part is put in your spring. Put it inside, right behind the hammer. That big cylinder piece of steel. Now, take your end cap, your end plug, and put it over Put it over the spring and push down. Hold that in place with your thumb. Take this piece, bring this in. I don't know if you can see it. Perfect, see? Alright. Now, here's your trigger assembly. Put that on top. Now put in the second screw on your trigger assembly. As you can see, this also connects into the rear plug, keeping it in place. Alright, so now, put in your stock lug. Mine is broken, so it kind of just slides in, but yours should screw in with a 7/16 wrench. Cool. Oh. Next thing, put on your barrel sleeve. Hold up, can you see it? Can you see it? Yeah. And slide it on. Oh, that's where that Allen key goes to. The barrel sleeves use a 5/64. Cool. Now put on your front muzzle sight. Perfect. All right. Now, I will forget about this part since y'all don't need to see that. Now put on your stock. You do that by first laying it on top of the gun. Alright, now take your flathead, and it's kind of hard to show y'all, but inside there's a little screw, not a screw, there's a little spring. And you have to do it from first the safety button hole. Push it out. Can you see it? Maybe? I don't know. Push it out and then grab it. Grab it with your nail, either fingernail, and hold it in place. See? And now push in your hole. Now it should lock. Alright. See? Easy peasy. Now for the last thing, take your stock lug screw and put it down the hole and screw it in. Oh man. Bingo. Alrighty, and that's it. That's how you take apart a Benjamin Discovery and put it back together. I hope this helps you in your endeavor to take apart your Benjamin Discovery for whatever reason. And thanks for watching.